Millennials don't seem to be as driven to have children as generations before us. We're grinding, trying to establish careers, pay off student loan debt, and doing our own thing. But for those of us thinking about starting families, is adoption an option? This is what I wish you knew about helping a child find a forever home. Hello everybody, I'm Brittany Timmons and welcome to I Wish You Knew. Millennials at the upper end of our generation are at or nearing the big 3-0. And as we begin to think about starting families, is adoption ever part of the conversation? Here to tell you what they wish you knew are...
Hi, I'm Nashlin.
Hey, I'm Zeppelin.
So, you guys, as you think about families and having kids and things of that sort, have you ever thought of adopting?
I haven't really ever thought of it.
Why?
I think that number one, it's just been information. It's not been something that I've known a lot about in regards to the process and kind of like what goes into it. I think the second piece for me is also just like family. So everybody in my family has, been able to have children. And so just kind of continuing that. It's not necessarily like I just haven't thought about it just because of those sorts of things.
Have you all thought about starting families at all, period?
Personally, I haven't. I just feel like starting a family means having a united family, and I've never actually seen the step to that, like marriage and having the kids and then the family staying together. I've never experienced what a marriage is like, what it's like to just have one kid and just have a big happy family. So I just never thought of having kids generally. But if I were, I wouldn't start like now. Maybe ask me when I'm 30 and we'll get back to it.
Okay, see, that's interesting because some people say that us millennials thinking to have children later sometimes doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So what is your perspective on if you hit 30 and maybe, you're not able to carry that child? Would you think of adopting?
Of course, there's lots of children out there who don't have families, who want families. So I don't see the harm in just adopting rather than having my own. I've never, even if I were to have a family, I wouldn't have my own child because I know the complications. And what if I can't get pregnant? Then there's thousands of other kids who would love to have a family and a mom and a dad who would just love them and welcome them. As opposed to the parents who gave them away and might not have seen that. Yeah. And it's a hard process going through that, through foster care.
I agree. So for me, when I think about having a family and things of that sort, I tell myself I'm in no rush to do so. And then I sometimes think of my clock and I think of, okay, you're this age and you're supposed to be doing these things around this time. And if you don't let this happen at this time.
Why you say you're supposed to be?
Because that's what happens. I mean, I'm in my 20s and when I hit about 30, I better be thinking about dating somebody seriously. So at least by 32, 33, I can start having children if that's what I want. Okay. But my concern and my question mark comes from what I know I want to do with my life. Right. And that's first. If I meet somebody and he sweeps me off my feet, that will be shocking and I'll be open to that. But I'm not going to sit here and say, I don't believe that. What you said, I don't believe that, okay, by 30 I need to be doing this. By 30 my career needs to be popping and that's where my mind is. I have sometimes sat back and thought of, okay, so let's say your career starts a bit late and you're at the top of your career, what happens with you in giving birth? Of course, any woman wants to be able to carry a child and go through that process. But I've also let myself know, okay, Brittany, if you're not able to do these things, my house, my heart, and my arms are open to welcome in children, a child, I don't know how many that may be. And I've also experienced it firsthand because I have a cousin that was adopted. And she was with us at a very young age and I'm watching her grow and I'm watching her turn into a young woman. And it's such a beautiful thing to sit here and see, okay, if I'm not saying her life is perfect now, but I don't know what your life could have been if you didn't come into this family and allow us to shower you with love.
Yeah. To your piece about having thought about starting a family, I have from the perspective of that, like, I use it as like motivation for wanting to kind of like grind harder and go harder now, because I know that those things are inevitable, and it's kind of like an intrinsic motivation for me to be like, oh, okay, like when I have a wife or when I have a daughter, by the time that occurs.
Zeb, you want to have a daughter?
Yeah, I want to have girls. So that like they're already set, you know, so that's like early motivation. But regarding the adoption piece, I haven't thought about it, but I think I would. It's probably, I mean, it's also like a conversation that I would have to have with, you know, whoever my spouse was. But I think that there are a lot of like, you know, children who, especially African American children who don't have families, and that could use two parent households. And so I would definitely keep that as an option as well.
I will say this, only because I've heard things, or this is what they say. I get nervous when I think about how unfair it is to just say, okay, I want to adopt a baby, because the baby's new, they're not doing so much, and we can walk through this journey together until they get to the point of asking why, or things like that. I have a heart for those teenagers and those young folks that are at this age, and they've been in this system for so long.
That's tough.
And people do turn away from them because of their age and the fact that they are going to come to you with issues and concerns and emotions that's just pouring out of them. I wonder, what is your mind like about adopting not only just a baby, if that would be the case, but opening your homes to a teenager or older child?
I think that would be a little bit more difficult than actually raising the child as a baby, because they come with all this baggage already. So they have to warm up to you and be comfortable with you, and you have to be comfortable with them. So you have to make that connection in order to make the family work.
Yeah.
So
okay. So look, we'll pick back up on this. Still ahead, a very special guest will share how her journey to find her biological family helped lead her to her life's mission. We'll be right back. Is that what we're doing? Welcome back to I Wish You Knew. Joining us is Miss Wendy Cherry, an adoption advocate and founder of Selected Not Expected, a blog which highlights adoption, especially in the Black and Brown communities. Miss Wendy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Can you please tell us how your blog Selected Not Expected got started?
So I started my blog when I would tell the story about my adoption. I knew I was adopted since I was born. I was told that I was selected, not expected. So my paperwork was already done when I came home from the hospital when I was born. And so the first place that we went to was to my baby shower. So the announcement for my baby shower was she was selected, not expected. So over the years, I've been sharing my story, and there have been some really interesting twists and turns on my story.
Absolutely.
And so I was just like, if I keep telling it, people say, you should write a book. This is a movie. This is a documentary. So I was like, let me just start writing and getting it out for even myself, so that if I do tell the story, then I can say you can go to the blog and get the whole story. So that's how it started.
In a brief way, can you kind of tell us a little bit of the story?
Okay, so sure. So I was adopted before I was born, and that means the paperwork was already done. My parents were waiting for me, and so I knew I was adopted. You know, they told me that. I knew that I was special. I knew that I was, wanted or whatever. So growing up, when I was 18, I started to search for my biological family because I didn't look like anybody. So I always had like the yearning of, why do I have this face, these eyes, this hair, like where does this come from? So when I turned 18, I did my adoption search, and I was able to get non-identifying information. So that is like you get information, the height, the weight, maybe the reason why you were given up for adoption, but you don't get details. Like you just can't get the address and go knocking on the door, right? So I got that information, and when I got it, I realized that I had a sister who was adopted at least 1 year before me.
Wow.
Connected with her. She was at an HBCU down in North Carolina. I was a senior in high school at this point, and so we connected, bonded. First time we got on the phone, her voice was like mine.
Wow.
So now, mind you, up at 18, I didn't ever look like anybody, sound like anybody, but grew up in immense love.
Yeah.
My mom's family, my mom wants, you know, like when you want a baby, she couldn't have her own, so she wanted me, and I felt wanted my entire life by my, you know, by my family and then by my extended family, my grandparents. Everybody just jumped right into these babies are, these are our family, right? So my sister and I bonded, and then we started searching for our parents.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lo and behold, we did find our parents, still married,
Okay.
and living 30 miles from me. But they just, when we connected with them, they told us that they just couldn't have raised any more children. They already had children before they gave us away.
Wow.
And so we understood that.
Yeah.
We were always just grateful for the gift of life. You know what I'm saying? Like they were able to carry us to a full term and give us an opportunity that they didn't think that they could provide.
Right.
So from there on, you know, we just have connected with our biological siblings. So it turns out that I am number 5 of 8.
Can you tell the story of like, because I thought it was super fascinating of how, I think it was your sister, you found out like you had other sisters as well. Can you?
Okay.
Yeah, talk.
So recently,
Yeah.
just recently, I was contacted on Facebook Messenger from a guy who says, "Hey, Wendy, I am your brother, I think. I did a genetic test and it pops up, your name pops up. And because my name is pretty unique, the spelling anyway, he Googled me, and what does he find? SelectedNotExpected.com. So he reads this whole story, and it is me, right? And then we kind of look alike. So he contacted me. So I saw it, and I was like, okay, here we go. Because I thought, and my sister thought, that we were the only kids given up by this family.
So if I can ask, when you find out things like this, so unexpected, and it comes left field, and it's been years, are you immediately open to this information, or what is the process that you go through emotionally when you find out about these siblings and relatives that maybe only were 30 miles away?
Okay, so I was always open because I always wanted to know. And because it's really painful sometimes. The moms are and the dads are in a lot of pain when they have to give their children away. So it always isn't like, I'm just gonna give this baby away because I don't want a baby. So, you know, when we tried to connect with the family, it wasn't an initial open arms, okay? Because we were kind of a secret, and we kind of were like the skeletons coming out of the closet.
Gotcha.
18 and 19 years later.
Yeah.
And the technology has allowed for connections to be made where back 40, 50 years ago, parents thought once you sign that line, it's a wrap. I'm good, they're not gonna be able to find me, and that's what I want, unless they want to be found. Some parents do want to be found. If you see on TV, there's all types of shows now about these reconnections, but not everybody's like that, for whatever reason, you know. And so, you know, I was always open, but this latest iteration, so my journey has been going, and I actually have been documenting all of it. You know, it's like from Jersey to me. I'm from New Jersey. Like, who am I? You know, I'm adopted. I didn't look like anybody. Like, who am I? And in a quest for knowing who I am, I was open. If you say you part of my tribe, then, you know, I'm gonna research you, you know. But the technology has allowed for it to be that you can be found. So when I got this information from this new person who was in my Facebook Messenger, I didn't think it was spam. Like, you could really think it's spam, but he had too many little pieces. We were born in the same hospital, born in the same city. So I did some research, and lo and behold, that's my brother. And not only was it my brother, he has a sister, so they're a set of twins. He's a twin. So now I have a bonus. We call each other the bonus siblings. So we actually call each other the sibs, the siblings. So yeah, and we spent this past Thanksgiving together.
That's
for the first time. Yeah.
Are you still connected with your parents?
Can she answer that question as soon as we come back? Stay with us. We'll have more on adoption when we come back. My mouth is like really open because this is a story. Yeah. Welcome back to I Wish You Knew. We're talking about the joys and challenges of children finding their forever home through adoption. So Wendy, why do you think there is such a problem in the Black and brown communities with adoption?
Okay, so let's don't use the word problem. Let's frame it more. There's just not that much information out there about what it really means to be adopted. A lot of times our communities will keep the babies that weren't necessarily planned. Okay. So you'll come up with a situation where like the cool aunt that you had will be your mom. And your grandmother, the person who you think is your mom, is really your grandmother. So like sometimes we hide and we shroud these things. A lot of times we just don't even think about it. And so we think that there's a difference between foster care and adoption, and that there is. So a lot of times people think of foster and they think of what you said earlier about there being a problem. They come with baggage, you know, those kinds of things. So that shies people away. And then a lot of times, if you're going to adopt, you're probably on your second or third level of being in pain because you couldn't have your own, right? And then you don't know the process. And then to be honest, it's super expensive. And I've seen people even do GoFundMes to try to adopt.
Can you talk really quickly about that though? Like, where is that money going to? Because I read some articles that said that like you have babies that can cost upwards toward like $35,000, dollars. Where is that? I mean, obviously a baby can't be bought, right?
Well, there are lots of different ways. So in private adoptions, I have experience with private adoptions. My mom, who adopted me, performed private adoptions for 15 years. So I got to kind of like be privy to some of the things that were happening. So a birth mom, we call her. She knows she's gone through the books. She sees a family that she wants, right? They're excited. They've gotten to the point, they've gone through the whole process, so they have to get a home study. You gotta make sure that people are not crazy, as much as you can, as best you can.
Absolutely.
You gotta get some background checks, you gotta get some financials, you gotta get some stability litmus tests to make sure that these people are able to hold a baby, carry a baby, take care of a baby. So then the mom will say, well, how about you pay my rent for the next few months? Because I'm struggling, that's why I can't keep my baby. And they'll say, okay. Maybe pay for her doctor's appointments. We don't know what kind of insurance she has. There's all types of things, but then there's agency fees. You got to pay the social worker. So there's lots of fees. You got to get the birth certificate, the medical. So there are reasons why I think there's a scale on how much it costs, but it does cost money. And that is a deterrent sometimes for people who don't have money.
But then I read that African American or babies that are, essentially non-white cost less.
Yes.
So then how is this
exactly
all
right.
now coming into play based on?
Well, people who are non-white cost less, you say?
No, people who are, like black and brown.
Black-
And,
Yeah,
they
I mean,
cost less.
there's just a systemic disparity amongst this. I mean, that's really what my passion is. I want people to see the face of a black woman who has a successful adoption, who is a successful adoptee. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want you to see it does work. It can work. There are some instances where it can't, but there will be lots of babies here in the U.S. and people will go to Mexico, Russia, and all these places to get a baby, and these babies are right here. So there is some racism within the adoption community, and I don't even let anybody tell you there's not, because there are. I even read a story just on Sunday where a family was adopting a black baby, and when she got to the house, they saw she was black, they sent her back. So it happens. I mean, I don't want us to be naive. So that's why it's really important that if there are some strong Black families, strong with a foundation, who could bring in a baby, then do it if you can.
Right.
So with things like this at the forefront and things like this happening, is it okay for adoption to happen not inside their race? Because some people find it offensive that sometimes non-African American people go and adopt African American children. But when stories like this happen and people are shunning people away, what is left to do? Do you find it okay?
So I don't have a either or. I have a also and approach to this, because you still want love. And human beings are made for connection, and human beings need love however it comes. So I would say my suggestion to a non-Black family who's going to adopt Black children, Black and brown children, is to really get familiar with our culture. You know, some things are innate in us and nobody will ever know. You'll never be able to experience it. But at least if they can follow up as much as they can, just try to really get entrenched into what is important to us in the community. You know, there are the families, let's take the love out of it. Let's say that the love is standard. We know that people want to love and that's why they adopt. You're gonna need more than love.
Right.
You're gonna need more than love in general, you know.
Yeah.
I'm a parent with a birth daughter. I need more than love sometimes to deal with a 15-year-old, right?
Right.
So we know that. But there's just more information that they have to have. And I would say just more recently with the advent of the genetic testing, I would say if a parent wants to adopt a child of African descent, maybe do an African ancestry test or something and at least know who they are. So you have 5 years before the child is old enough to really start to think and reason and ask questions to even study where they're from.
Wow.
You know, I say that's easy to do.
So if you, being a adopted person, what would you want others to know? If you can tell just one person one thing about adoption, what is it that you would really want them to know, or even them changing their perspective of what they think about it?
That you can change somebody's life by bringing them into love, into peace, into a good foundation. And that is worth the try. If you really want to do it, then try it. That's what I would say. Go for it.
I agree.
Wendy, I think your story is absolutely beautiful, and I thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
We learned a lot today, and there is even more information out there about adoption. You can follow Ms. Cherry on her blog, selectednotexpected.com, and through the DC Child and Family Services Agency at adoptdckids.org. Our thanks to Ms. Cherry for joining us, and to all of you for watching. We'll see you next time on I Wish You Knew. I